Hello,
This is Jackie,
this is Sally.
and this is Sally Jerney Quilts.
Yeah, Sally Jerney Quilts, and it's my 6th podcast of my story of quilts.
Yeah, and I'm her daughter, Jackie.
And I'm very happy to have you here.
Yes, and I've been instructed to be animated.
Correct. And hand me my
I'm
water.
the color commentary and the extra pair of hands.
Yes. Well, she's been with me through this entire journey, so I love it when I have her here.
Do you want to start with a poem, though?
Sure, go ahead. As long as I don't have to read it.
You don't have to read it, but you're going to choose the poem, so just open the book. It's Mary Oliver. Mom loves Mary Oliver. Okay.
Spring.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy that you chose this poem. Because I have a dear friend, and I'm going to tell her story after I read the poem. It's called Spring. Somewhere a black bear has just risen from sleep and is staring down the mountain. All night in the brisk and shallow restlessness of early spring, I think of her. Her 4 black fists flicking the gravel, her tongue like a red fire touching the grass, the cold water. There is only one question: how to love this world. How to love this world. I think of her rising like a black and leafy ledge to sharpen her claws against the silence of the trees. Whatever else my life is, with its poems and its music and its glass cities, it is also this dazzling darkness coming down the mountain, breathing and tasting. All day I think of her white teeth, her wordlessness, her perfect love.
Oh, goodness, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's reminding me of Donna down in North Carolina
Mm-hmm.
with her black bear Cam out there every night, and I keep thinking, wow, she lives with black bears.
Mm-hmm. And my
It's
friend
beautiful.
Melissa just got a new house, and her first house guest was a black bear swimming in her swimming pool.
Oh my goodness.
Her very first guest.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh goodness.
Mhm. And oddly enough, that poem too was the poem, I like to just take a book and just open it and see what it says. And that's one of the poems my 3rd graders loved, and we read over and over, and they discovered what there was to find for themselves at that moment in that poem, and that the strangeness sort of fell away, and they started belonging to it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
How to
it just
love
reminds
this
us,
world.
that there's something else going on in this world besides our everyday comings and goings.
And you and your work, we're just going to take it to mean, is like the black bear coming down the mountain with wordlessness and perfect love.
Well, thank you. It has. This is just getting ready for. I guess putting the quilts in the Etsy shop, which is as close as I've done shows before where I have them in people coming to my house and that kind of thing, which I love the energy of that. But short of that, filling my Etsy shop with all this fabric, story, and love, I not only make these, but I think about how they're going to be received by people out there. It's my gift to you. And whether you decide to take one into your own life, or whether you just enjoy the images that I'm going to be flooding you with in the next few weeks, because I love taking pictures of quilts almost as much as making quilts, but it's just part of a loving process, a loving interchange. And it's been quite a year. So these quilts, when I look over the sum total of them, is like coming out. I call them my Reentry series because I finished them on the heels of the Hexie project. And the Hexie project, I'm thinking that most of you are familiar with it, but that was...
You want to show one quick though, so they can
Okay,
see.
we can just bring out... The Hexie project was in...
This is what I'm here for.
Yeah, just a gift. It was a 1940s quilter's bag of hexagon pieces. And I took those and put those on my own stash of fabrics. And I made 444, which is all that she had in there. And then she and I collaborated through the months that it took me to make them with her story, my story, our story coming together in what it's like to be in a world pandemic or a world crisis, and and what we have to do to get by. That was the Hexie project. It was met with love and with enthusiasm and beyond my wildest dreams. They're all over the world, so I'm very excited about that. But after the Hexie project was done, I kept a quarter of them myself, so that I'm going to be making something probably next month for us. But in the meantime, I was left I'm a very passionate quilter, and when I'm in the throes of creating, I'm not very neat. And some people would, cut out, they go, oh, you're making a 4-inch square. Well, why don't you just take your Olfa cutter and take some fabric and cut some neat 6-inch squares, and then you can put your batting on top of it, which has also been cut very neatly, and everything will be neat and tidy and not very much waste. I don't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
I get my scissors in there and go like, oh, I want that fabric, and I just cut a rough square, which is always way too big, and then put a rough sandwich, batting in there, and put the nice little 4.5-inch square in Hexie, and then sew them together. And in the process, I cut around them, and it leaves the backing fabric, it leaves the binding fabric, it just is in there, plus the squares that didn't get used. So I have a little basket here, which is just my, whoops, there's also a rattly thing of buttons. It's just the example of the kinds of scraps that are left over. Quilters are familiar with these. I think I generate...
Did you tip it?
That's my blues that I...
God, that's gorgeous.
Isn't that gorgeous, just like it is?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've grown up with these. These have been like our play toys, our
Oh,
whole
I know.
lives.
And this just inspires... I don't know how I can I just keep wanting to stop and put them together, which is what I've been doing the month of June, is every time I think I'm done, then I find the fabric needs more work, and so I just keep...
You've established that you create in a messy environment. But have you segued to the small piece? Is that where you're going?
You mean to this little one?
Yes.
Okay, yes. When I was done with the main Hexie, I was left with this, and I've showed this on the Caddy Jacks podcast,
Okay.
but I want it to be in my Sally Jerney Quilts, because not everybody gets to Sally Jerney Quilts via Caddy Jacks. It's amazing. Anyway, these were the leftover, these little squares and these little tiny hexagons.
They're
A smaller version of that were in that bag of this 1940s quilters stuff. It was that and a few other little odds and ends. And so when I found that, when I was done, it was like creating an epilogue to the hexagon series, and it turned into this beautiful little capsule of, just the piece that we'll keep for us, that has story. It has Jackie's wedding fabric on, the backing. It just has a lot of meaning, and it also kind of works as a capstone, because what I had...
It was sort of the bridge.
It was the bridge to the next thing, because what happened was...
These are so cool. This is copper.
That's copper. In this bag, and I've talked about this at great length in the 5th podcast, but this quilter also she left her templates, and this is the one for the main big Hexies, which is a funny little George. You have to turn George Washington.
I know, but I like that.
I do
side
too. I like this side too. It must have been like a postcard, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
But the copper one, I wondered what in the world that was until I actually had time. Because believe me, making 444 hexagram squares was time consuming. It was an all consuming passion. You thought you'd kind of lost me for a while, I think. I had gone down this like creative, where that was all I could talk about, all I could take pictures of, all I could do was make hexagon squares until they were completed. But then I found this in there. I knew it was in there, but like, what in the world was that? And then when I found the little hexagons, I knew, oh, that was the piece that she used to make the little ones. So the mystery is did she just start a quilt and then something in her life interrupted, so she only had about, I think there were about 6 of these cut with this, or was at the tail end? And I kind of have a feeling it was a beginning, you know, like she would cut them out of her scraps. Anyway,
And moving on.
it's a mystery. I know. These are the mysteries that I could go on and on about. But anyway, in my exploration, I decided to take this hexagon, and we'll get to it further because I'm going to try to do this in order. But anyway, this will show itself in the next rendition of these Reentry quilts. So there I am with piles of leftover fabrics that are gorgeous. You know, that's just like we showed you the blues, and that's only a third of the blues, I would say. I just stuffed them in there. And I started making these little, I think they're like 6-inch squares. They were rough.
And by started to make these things, it was without intention. It was just, I'm going in and playing with my fabric stash, right?
That's correct. That's how I do it. I don't, and I don't know, we want to, it ended up that the squares, these Reentry quilts, I thought this was all I was going to do, was just make these little squares.
I think you should show what you're talking about.
Okay. They're like this. And
Do you want me to help?
each one of them has a different Liberty of London backing, which is something that unifies them.
Oh,
And they're all, you can see when you look at this, Jackie, the hexagon label, which is made out of, the hexagon labels are all made with the copper template. That'll be on the bottom.
I feel like we showed these on our
You did.
podcast.
We showed them before they were finished, I believe.
Oh, okay.
You were showing
Can
them.
I just keep showing them while you talk?
Right. So these just happened. They were,
Oh,
you know, like I'd reach
fabric.
in and I'd have no particular thing to do, but just took a pretty piece of fabric and then worked with it. And, you know, they became little pictures, little paintings. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I just enjoyed it, and I felt like, oh, this is wonderful. And then this starts, I had from, I think I've talked to you about this before, the Maine Vintage Goods Etsy shop had a great
Oh,
big,
you're not supposed to say your source.
well, I don't mind, a great big bag of these creamy vintage buttons. And I have to get my helper to realize that that's always on the bottom.
I have realized
Oh, okay.
it.
All right.
They don't need to see it
Beautiful.
every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But anyway, the buttons, I just love adding those because it's just a way of
Can
combining.
you show them the pie tin of buttons?
Yeah, I'm still working on them. Look how pretty
And
they
of
are.
course, you guys know on this channel by now that Sally hand stitched hand quilts.
I mean, it's just such a creamy little, luscious,
Mhm.
delicious vintage buttons. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. And so they just, you know, they just fell in line. I mean, it was like, oh, what am I going to do now? And I just was in this bliss, just absolute bliss of creating.
What do you mean by re-entry?
Reentry.
Why are you calling these re-entry?
I'm calling them the reentry because we started little by little. The COVID restrictions were lifted. You could go into places without masks. You could meet people in groups. I mean, they just started little by little taking off all the restrictions.
And does this express or represent
This
that?
does.
In any way?
This is because this is taking from the things that I was working
from
on before,
COVID
from the
into
COVID
the-
squares, now into this colorful, bright, cheerful,
Optimistic.
optimistic.
Not that those weren't, but
No.
this is less related to the original person, less
Yeah, the only
more forward looking.
the thing that I tried to do with her in this setting is to bring her hexagon template into making the labels. And there
They're
are
all numbered too.
Yeah, and
so
there's
this is Reentry 18.
there are a number of them that have a little piece of the hexy fabrics in it. And I think there's
These
two
are
of them.
hexy scraps though.
Yeah, these are all
All
hexy,
this
all
stuff.
of it. Yeah, all of it
You
is.
know, by that we mean these pieces of fabric she
Yeah, the
used on the
backs,
outside.
yeah,
I have two more to show.
right. So anyway, these are, and it was just fun digging into my Liberty of Londons too, because
And like, look at all the
they all have different kind of.
they're beautiful together. You know.
Yeah, I think that.
Like you could have 4 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be amazing.
Yeah, because
Oh my gosh! Can you hold 2 and I'll hold 2 and we can put 4 of them together?
yeah, they're meant to be
hold
very.
on to that, and I'm gonna take. This is random.
Yeah.
But we're gonna do this.
This
for you.
is meant to
All right,
be
hold it down a
something
little bit because otherwise
something that you could put together. Yeah. Because
there.
yeah,
Wow.
because they're all pleasing together.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I kept the very subdued bindings.
And as always, I just need to state, and maybe you can comment if you've ever gotten one of these, how different they are in person
Yeah.
than just seeing it on Etsy. Because there's the tactile, which is so. I mean, it feels like you have a different batting this time too. It's so.
It's soft. Yeah.
It's soft and firm though. It's fabulous.
Yeah. No, it should really be kind of a fun thing
It's
to add.
not mushy like.
No, and it's like a nice bright little. These can go wherever you want. Just a little.
Okay, so those are going into the shop.
Yeah, those will go into the shop, and then after that, see, I got all of those done, and then
How many are there?
there are 21 of these,
Mm-hmm.
and well, we'll just go in order. They're not in
This
order
order?
here, but this next batch is, these are called Reentry Path, and there are 5 of these. And what this is the cutting up the strips off of here. There was usually only something that could be probably 6 inches of a strip, a very narrow strip. And so there was a lot of fabric that was in strips already. Well, it was actually in a hacked up mess, but I made it into strips. And then as I finished these, I started cutting out these beautiful little hexagons with her copper template. And I added those on top because I loved how they floated across that fabric, just adding another bright bit of color. And they just don't show up as well on screen. They're just rich. They're like jewels on top of there. And that's all this variegated gold thread, so it sparkles. They're all sewn down like, either with variegated gold or variegated green. I think one of them may have a purpley yellow. But they each are different, and they all have this kind of a, I don't know, just, it's like a path you'd want to be on.
Yes, that is so true. Like your path forward.
Mm-hmm.
I love this one.
Yeah, I know. Jamie's got one that she's.
This is my skirt fabric.
Yeah. She always points that out. We got the fabric at the same time. I did not cut up her skirt in the making of these quilts.
And you've used this one a lot for backing.
Yeah, I love that one.
Okay.
So those are those. And then we'll show, I'm in the process of sewing labels on.
Oh, I love
These are a series of, they're roughly 5.5 by 7. And they're called Nightlife because they have, some of them have that metallic linen. They have that beautiful gold, but they're completely neutral. And you'll see I have a bunch of, and they're going to hang on the clips that I used for the hexagon quilts. So I'm sending along a little clip, and they also have the creamy neutral buttons. There's 6 of those, and then you can show them. Did you show them the backing with the? This was a cute fabric for knitters that Jamie brought me back from Door County last summer.
Mm.
So we made.
Oh, those are cute. Is that embroidery?
No, that is just, well, I suppose you could call it embroidery. They're just little X's.
That's
I've been putting little X's on the labels and on places on the quilt, and it's easier than making hearts. Little X's are my way of sending a little extra love. The X, you know, the kiss, the love, the whatever.
Oh, like an XO.
And I just find they're kind of fun to add in. And then there's, so that's the Nightlife series, and they are all,
like you could have more than one.
Yeah, they could all go together.
Oh, yeah.
They're, you know.
Okay, that's going in your
So
shop.
that, yes. So then the next thing, these came, whoops.
Slightly bigger. I'm showing the back first.
No, what these were was quilts that I made this one before, but during the time when I was, actually before I started any of this. This was like the second quilt that I made out of the scraps, and I've had it on Instagram with I had ordered some Dream State yarn from Black Mountain Yarn Shop, and I put it on here, and it was just such a gorgeous picture. But this is called Underneath, and there's a lot of reasons why it's called Underneath, but this is a Australian fabric that I've had that for 20 years or so, and it's got little grubs in it and things, and so this whole thing looks like underground things going on under there, and it's sort of that percolating life form under there, and this quilt was the second one I made in the Reentry series, so that's kind of where my mind was at the time. And yes, it has more of the fabric that you have your skirt made out of. I just don't want people, yeah, and the little hexing. I don't want people to think I've cut your skirt up then.
I know, we wouldn't want them to.
Now this is just vibrance in. This is one of the last quilts I made, discovering that I loved putting those hexagons in. It has one of the creamy buttons down at the bottom, the little triangle, and it's
little
pieced. Yeah, those are little ships, and then it has a very sort of nautical feeling. I call this opening because it's what it feels like. It feels like you're opening up,
like flags catching
and
the breeze.
I mean, it's a very dense quilt. It's very heavy. It's a different kind of batting. I love it. And I don't know if you can tell, it's bound with our napkins. Do you see that? We have napkins out of that fabric.
Yeah.
And then this one goes the other way. Make sure, as Lily would say, you have to make sure these are buttons that Jackie brought me back from your trip to New York. These are the tree buttons. And Lily pointed out that you just need to have the trees facing the right direction.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So that is, I hope that's coming across. That is one of the boldest, most jewel tone colors. I think you have it upside down, possibly.
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
Well, your thing's at the bottom.
Well, maybe
The trees are facing correctly.
Are they? Okay.
Yes.
I'm just like.
Is there more you want to say about this one?
Other than I love it. I absolutely love it. I had so much fun creating that one because it was a departure. The colors are much deeper than anything that I'd done before it. And because I'm, this was before I sorted my fabrics that you put up in your stories about look at Sally's sort. So yes, this was before that. So everything was mixed in and I could just reach in and find rich pieces of purple and red. And so that was beautiful.
This reminds me of a mixed bouquet. And,
Yeah, I know. You're having a hard time.
I'm not as into mixed bouquets, but whatever.
Now this one, that's the bottom here. This one I love. This was the last quilt I've made in this series. And I thought I was done. This one is called Finding Treasure. And it was Finding Treasure. When I sorted the fabrics the other day into their color so I could put what's left away, I kept finding a little piece of fabric. Let me see if I can point to one. There was just a little piece of this left, which is a beautiful striped fabric. It has, in the original piece of fabric, it has several other colors. And I used that in the hexes to frame one of the squares that Lily has. And so there wasn't much of it left at all. I think I've used it on other quilts. So I found that, and then I put it aside because it was multicolor and I didn't know which bin to put it in. And then I kept finding little pieces of things and going like, that were just too small. And so I kept saving them. So I had this this beautiful, kind of dyed fabric. It's white with just a little bit of blue in it. And this little one with the, this little circle, just tiny little pieces of the glasses. There's one with the bicycle. And I just had a little pile of fabrics, and I brought them over, and I had a lot of these green strips that, I had just been sorting the green fabrics, and I brought I had the green bin over, and so it just evolved. It was like, sometimes quilts go together and it's like magic. It is total, it's that, what Elizabeth Gilbert talks, the big magic. I mean, it's like it flows through you, and this quilt was like that. I fell in love with it the minute. I mean, when I'm putting it together, it was like everything worked. And I wish it could show you exactly what it, but it's just thick and luscious, and it has a lot of everything balances. And I use a lot of technique to balance, and it just
I can see that. Yeah. The composition is beautiful, and I guess I have this aching sense listening to you talk that that I've spent my whole life saying, what does this fabric mean? When did you get that? Etc., etc. And you can always point to a fabric and tell me a story. And someday you're not going to be here to do that.
Oh, yes, that's true. And I can't sit down and write every story. It won't matter.
So it's like,
it's part of why I'm doing this, and sometimes I get a little verbose because I'm going like, whoa, I love this,
No, I know, but it's like we can, okay, I can say this much. These are my pajamas that I got when I got married.
From Jamie. And it's the softest. It is absolutely gorgeous.
And I don't know, that stuff is not, that's going to be lost. There's so much of human life that's lost.
It's all just passing through us.
And we have to just let it pass through us.
Yeah, and which is one of the reasons why I sell my quilts. People say, how can you give that, how can you part with that? Well, if I didn't part with that, I would have pile. I mean, I have this whole table piled high
with the good of that.
And and this way people have them and they can enjoy them. They may not know the intimacies of the story. Like this, you've got to turn.
Can we show the whole thing before you get into a little mini one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Jackie.
Well, I just mean people need to see the big picture, and then what? What were you going to say?
Yeah, this quilt, I had a piece top of it on my quilt podcast on the 5th. Yeah. Anyway, what I was going to share is like there's little parts here. This little piece of fabric that I just have little bits of it was in Heron's baby quilt. Remember the little?
Oh yeah, the balloons. These are hot air balloons, and he loved hot air balloons, and he would say, balloon, balloon, with so much joy.
Yeah, and so I have the hot air balloons in his quilt. But, and there's lots of other, but this was just pure joy. This was the first quilt I made, or the first top I made, going like, oh, I should be able to make strips out of this because I can't use this fabric for anything else. Can you show them the label on this? I really like the label.
Oh, yeah.
This label has, well, it's a pretty Japanese fabric behind it, and then it's got the little white hexagon. But this was an original one from the 1940s quilter, that little hexagon.
Yeah, you can tell it's vintage.
It's kind of a little, so I put that back there. So I want people to know that is from the original. And this quilt, which is...
Oh, I have one that has fallen. There's another string.
Oh, did you just drop?
I don't know.
This is one of my favorites.
Well, I showed it.
Oh,
but
okay.
I
All right. I love this one. This
Yeah.
is like, and the color's not showing completely, but that one, and that's got a little bit of the balloon fabric too. Okay, this one, that's the other way around, I guess.
What? Oh,
That's the top.
okay. Sorry.
This one is called Coming Into the Light, and this one I
There
made.
it is in too much light.
Yeah, it's in too much light. It's beautiful. It was made.
Can I interrupt?
Hmm.
We got this at a garage sale when I was in middle school,
Oh, younger than it. You were in your,
elementary school, and
you
it
were a
was like
tiny little
all
girl.
this 40s fabric. And I remember like we hit the jackpot.
We
We
did.
were amazed. And
Mhm.
I was this little girl in my pajamas, right?
Yeah, we
And
got up
I
and
had
walked
to
over it.
Carry all this fabric.
Because we got yards and yards
yes,
and yards. You
this
could
was
just
from
buy it
that.
off the.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was incredible.
Yes.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yes. Anyway, this quilt I put together from a lot of pieces I had around, plus a little of the fabric from the mass and fabrics
Mhm.
from. So I just quickly put it together. I think, and then it's got these really a gorgeous,
The light is going to make it so we can't do this much longer.
yeah, gorgeous buttons there.
And
Anyways,
beautiful.
yeah, and the beautiful Liberty of London backing. I'm surprised. I still have enough Liberty of London to make a quilt of itself, which I intend to. But anyway, that one I made during COVID, and it was just kind of I think after the Hexies, but before starting these.
Mhm.
So anyway, they go on. I'm trying to think if there's any
I
other.
thought you had a rainbow situation.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's why you're
Here,
here.
it's right here.
Okay, yeah.
And so talk about your Etsy shop. How do they find your Etsy shop?
The Etsy shop is Sally Jerney Quilts. It's if you're in my Instagram feed, it's in my bio. A link to
Okay.
it. That's the easiest way
And
to
her
get to it.
Instagram feed is linked below.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is. I was trying to get this done for the drop of all these quilts, and I just don't have it in me.
Sure, it's okay.
Because
Next time.
when I separated the fabrics into their colors, I started making strips of rainbow, and I'm going to be adding white around these and add obviously blue, indigo, and violet to finish it and make another quilt. So that's coming. And then I just want to show you, this is the kind of thing that happens to me. I can't remember my fabric bins looking for binding, and then this little thing drops out and it goes, So that may be starting a quilt. This is the little hexies that I've been cutting up and using, and I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, it's just.
And did you buy some more vintage
I did
pieces?
buy some more vintage pieces. They're
Mhm.
so cute. I could not resist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at this one.
Yeah.
So anyway, I plan on doing this. I'm going to tuck all this stuff in the shop,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got to send my machine off to get its well-deserved
Okay, but let's
rest. Yeah.
focus on the shop update. When
Okay.
is that?
The shop update will be either tonight or tomorrow. And
Today is July
second.
2nd.
So if
Friday,
you-
July
Yeah,
2nd.
if you go into my Etsy shop ahead of time and you favor the shop, I believe what happens is then if I drop this at midnight, for instance, because I finally get everything done, you'll get a notification.
And she'll put it on Instagram when
Yeah,
it's
I
gone
will.
live
Mhm,
too.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's 38 quilts. Enjoy. And you'll see more pictures. Follow the stories. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. But we should go because the light
Yeah,
is
we're going to be
like-
sitting and wilting in the sun.
Yes. Okay, love you all.
So, bye-bye.
Bye.